could join us this morning. We're going to kind of have a tough lesson. I was just telling the girls this morning. I had a really tough time with this week. I've been sick and just had a lot of issues and really been struggling with where God wanted me to go. And so last night, me and my daughter Jackie was talking. And I was telling her, I was just having a really tough time. And we just got to talking about stuff. And she said, well, what's on your heart, And so I started talking to her. And she said, title it, Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover.
Ooh.
And I was like, ooh. Mm-hmm. I said, that's a good word right there, chicken. And she said, seriously, she said, Mom, do you know how many times, and I hope, Jackie, if you're watching, I hope you don't mind, but she said, do you know how many times I take Tatum to school and I get funny looks because I've got red in my hair or one of my tattoos is showing? And she said, people make these pre-assumptions, I feel like, about me without even getting to know me. They don't even take the time to know me because they just see this outward appearance of me and they just automatically judge whether or not I'm a good mom. And she said, it breaks my heart. She said, I don't know how many times I've just felt like an outsider in a room full of people. I felt like a loner. Yeah. And so we talked a little bit last night, and then I went in and I prayed, and God kind of laid some stuff on my heart. And I thought about, my time in Costa Rica, how I would look at a person and I was seeing the outward person. And there on the trip in Costa Rica, I actually learned to look in people's eyes and see the person that was inside. You can tell so much by a person if you'll just take 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. I know we make first impressions. Yeah. I mean, we all know that. Yeah. There's no way around that. We do. We make first impressions. But we got to get beyond that first impression, and we got to look at the soul. We got to look at the eyes. And that was one thing that I learned there on the trip, really a lot better, I feel like, to do, was to really look in the soul. We had an opportunity to work with some kids there that were in a situation, and they were behind bars, and we were able to go in and talk with them, and some of their eyes are dark, and they're lonely, and they're afraid. But some of their eyes are just, they're blank. Their eyes are just blank. You don't feel anything when you look into them. You could just tell that it was just a child that had just turned off their feelings and turned off their heart. And that's true with us as adults. It's sad that these kids are going through that at such a young age, but we as adults do it too. We put these walls up and we put these blockers up to protect ourselves. But what happens a lot of times when we put that wall up, the wall gets closer and closer and closer to us. And the closer it gets to us, the farther away the people around us who love us get. And we don't mean for it to happen. And I wish Tammy was here today because I'd love for her to just talk about how she's had those walls and how hard it's been for her to sometimes tear down those walls and break them down. But she does, and she works on it every day. She's constantly striving to keep breaking down those walls. And sometimes they'll come back up. Something will happen, and she'll throw her wall back up, and you just have to break back through it again. So that's kind of what, I wanted us to talk about today was, a person's actions, their clothes, their hair, if they have tattoos or not. We assume certain things about them. I grew up thinking that if a person had a tattoo, they belonged in a biker gang. I mean, because my dad or my mom, didn't have any tattoos. None of my aunts and uncles or anything much had them. And the ones that did have them, there was a story behind it, and it usually wasn't a very good story. It was a rough time in their life. So that was kind of how I grew up, looking at tattoos. And then the first time my girls wanted to get a tattoo, I was about ready to flip out. I was thinking, holy cow. But then I come to realize that it's nothing. It's
It's a
just
form
part
of
of them.
expression.
Yeah, it's no different than them cutting their hair or
Right.
coloring their
That's
hair.
right.
It was just an expression that they
Right.
wanted, a way they wanted to express themselves. So now I'm interested in people's tattoos. I want to know the story behind their tattoo. I want to know the good or the bad, because I want to know, did it change your life? Were you the same person then as you are now? Did you get this in a different time in your life? And show the growth that they've had.
Right.
But I can't do that if I don't look into their eyes, if I don't see that person, if I don't, you can talk to somebody all day long and never see them.
Yeah.
And I did not realize how easily that was done until a few years ago. And I realized that a lot of times I would sit and talk to a particular person and they never heard a word. They just agreed, they shook their head, they were polite, whatever, but they didn't really hear me. They didn't see me. They never took the time to look in my eyes and see me. They didn't see how I was struggling, and I'm not blaming my depression on anybody by any means, but that was one of the reasons my depression got to the point that it did, was because I felt like nobody saw me anyhow. So what difference did it make? And I feel like that's how a lot of people in depression feel, is they feel like nobody's listening, nobody sees me. They see what I'm struggling with, or they see that I'm angry, or they see that I'm upset about something. They see my tears, but they don't see me.
And then they judge you by that.
Yeah, and then
They
they
just
make that
pacify you.
judgment. They think, oh, this lady's just crazy. Well, I am crazy, but
Everybody's crazy.
Everybody's crazy.
But so it happens so often that we do that. And, and I have looked at people with crazy hair before and thought, wow, But now when I see somebody with different hair, I'm like, wow, that's a person who's confident.
Exactly.
That's a person
Yeah.
who's strength, who knows who they are.
Yeah.
I want to be that person. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do, to my hair, and not have to worry about what other people say, because that's a great confidence in yourself. And we should all have that
Must
kind
be
of
why
confidence.
I'm having the desire to shave my head, at least part of it.
To change yourself?
I'm having this desire to
Where do you want to shave it? On the side?
just make it really, really short back here,
I've
like
done haircuts
buzz
like
cut
that.
it,
Yeah.
and then this side right here,
That undercut?
and then this side right here.
Yeah, just shave
Just
just
like
like
a-
a flat. That's what
Yeah, I've
we
seen a
call
lot of those different kinds. Of course, I think you have beautiful hair, TJ, so I love your curls. I don't
Yes.
like
it. It probably grows
I'm
faster.
totally
Yeah.
jealous of your curls.
You would definitely have to have it done a lot, because your hair grows so fast. But, one thing that let me give y'all a couple of verses and let y'all look them up. Stace, will you look up John 8:3-11? Miss Melanie, will you look up Ephesians 2:8-9? And then TJ, Mark 2:15-17. And then I'll look up Matthew. I'm in my chronological Bible, so I have to look at this
If you
way.
what?
Matthew 7:1-5. Let's see, 7. One thing that God was bringing out in this was judging others cheapens the price that Jesus paid for us.
That's a good one.
And the reason that is because we all have value in God's eyes. It doesn't matter what our past, what our present, or what our future is. He gave us a value before we were even conceived. He placed a value on us, and that value never changes. Do you still have that paper?
No, it's at home.
Let me grab a paper right quick. Y'all hang on one second.
I have my coin though.
What was your scriptures?
Mine was Mark 2:15-17. And then hers is Matthew. Melinda's is Matthew 7:1-5.
Do you need my coin?
So yesterday,
Do you need my coin?
no, I've got mine in my purse. But so yesterday I was getting my little trinkets ready for some different people that I had brought little trinkets back. That had supported me for the missions trip and stuff, and it was just a little bag, a little handmade bag, and I put a cologne, which is the Costa Rican money. This is the bag.
Oh,
And
cute.
it's just a little, and then inside each one I put a different cologne. Some of them was 500, some were 25,
That's
some
the
were.
Costa Rican money?
Stacy, I just pulled that all the way out. Well, I'll have to fix it in a minute. So this is 100 cologne. And when you look at it, you think, okay, that's, if you just looked at this, if you just hold it in your hand and you look at it and you feel it, you're going to think it's $1, like our silver dollars.
Yeah.
Because that's what it looks like, okay? The shape, the size, the feel of it. But it's actually 100 colonies, which is not a whole lot.
What, like 10,
It's,
15 cents? 50 cents?
well, yesterday I think it was, 18 cents or something like that. It takes about 4 or 5, I think it takes 5.
To make
I wish
a
I had
dollar?
misread it. Yeah, to make
That's
a dollar.
what it is today.
All right, so today the exchange rate is 565.806.
So that's 56
So
cents?
$1 US compared to that. So
It's like,
50 cents.
no,
so-
it's like
it's-
almost
be a lot less.
6 of these, right? Because there's 565 and this is
Yeah.
100.
yeah.
So it'd be almost 6 of these for
$1.
$1 US dollar.
Oh.
So, but anyhow, so I give this little thing with those that I give the basket to, and at the bottom I put a chart of when we were there from March the 18th through March the 24th, and I showed the different exchange rates each day. So like when we got there on the 18th, $1 US was equal to 569.5688 colonies. Okay, then when we left on the 24th, it was 566.2997. But during that week, it fluctuated each day.
Right.
And so I said, in the chart below, you can see how the value of this cologne changed daily while we were on our trip to Costa Rica. I wanted to share this with you to remind you that the value God placed on you never changes. He gave his life for you, and nothing you do will ever change the love he has for you. It is my prayer that each time you see this cologne that you will remember 2 things. First, that God values you above all other creatures, that he gave his son for you because he loves you. And second, that you were part of a mission in Costa Rica. Please continue to pray for them and about the possibility of going with me next year.
Yeah.
And then I just said, love you, Melinda. And so, you know, when I started trying to write that out yesterday, I had it in my heart, but I couldn't get the words out. And I was kind of struggling with it. And then this message, you know, when God started pulling this message together last night, I thought, okay, Lord, thank you. Thank you that you take a coin that I judged while I was in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it, I thought, wow, that's $1.
Yeah.
You know, that's 50 cents at least, you know, because some of them have 25 on them, some of them have 50.
Right.
That one has 100. And I was like, and then later that night, I think me and Miss Rita were sitting, and I was asking her, I said, look at all this change I've got. And I was thinking, wow, I've got a lot. You know, I probably got $5 or $6 here, you know. And then she counts it out, and I think I ended up having like $2 and something in the whole wad of change that I had. And I had like 13 of those, of the big ones, and then I had several of the smaller ones and stuff. And I just thought, God, how awesome is that? How awesome is that you can take something that I used in Costa Rica and got a first impression about and show me the real worth of it. If I will take just a few minutes to look in the eyes, to look behind the eyes, to look into the windows of somebody's soul, what might I find? What might I really see? What might I really understand about that person? And how my prayers even will change about that person or about their situation. We met a young lady that works with Sigma down there, a young missionary, and she gave us a letter. She's still trying to raise her.
I read that
Her,
letter.
that's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
Her name was Miss Cindy, touched my heart greatly. You know, we already knew Daniela and Mel and Miss Rita and Pablo and Kodo, and we love them with our whole heart. And then here's Cindy, and she comes in and she's so loving and so kind and was so good to all of us to explain things when we were out and about. She didn't mind us asking questions or anything. And so then she gave us a letter, and in her letter, she needs $500 a month as her support. Can y'all imagine living on $500 a month?
No, I can't even live.
I
on
cannot
what I
even
draw.
imagine having to survive on
That's
that.
double that.
But she's
Yeah.
worked her life in such a way that things are not important to her that used to be important to her. You know, she's changed her direction
Yeah.
because God has become the center of her life.
That's right.
And that when I read her letter, it just really touched me to know that God is really the center of her life. He really is. You know, and she has about, I think she has 10% of her support right now that she needs to survive. And, you know, it's just awesome to know that she's trusting God and that she's believing that God's going to supply her needs. Just like Rita and Koto did, you know, many, many years ago, and now Pablo and Daniela. Y'all, I'm telling you, if y'all could see how they
I'm going
live.
Next year. I'm going next year.
They don't waste nothing. I mean, they really don't. I mean, they are so frugal, and I don't even know how they do it. I just don't. They treat us like we are kings and queens when we're there, and I don't say that lightly. I mean that. I mean, they will give to us, and they give so much of themselves to us when we're there that we don't even feel like we're supposed to be going there to love on them and to give to them, and we always get so much more back than what they could ever give us. So it blesses my heart every time I go. So I will be going back next year. It's not a matter of, you know, I usually say, well, if God supplies, well, you know what? I'm going to do my part
I'm going.
and trust that God is going to
Yes.
supply, because there is a need there.
Yes.
There is a mission there
Yes.
that needs to be done.
Yes.
These people, you know, this second year I've went, these people have a place in my heart. The places that they take us and the things that they allow us to be a part of, it just opens up windows in my heart and just helps me to love so much more, to see so much more, to want so much more, to want to do so much more. It just encourages me beyond anything you can imagine. But, all right, Stacey, will you read John 8-11?
Then the scribes and Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what do you say? This they said, testing him, that he might have something of which to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger, as though he did not hear. So when they continued asking him, he raised himself up and said to them, He who is without sin among you, let him throw a stone at her first. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Then those who heard it, being convicted by their conscience, went out one by one, beginning with the oldest even to the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus had raised himself up and saw no one but the woman, he said to her, Woman, where are those accusers of you? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said to her, Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more.
All right. I know y'all have all heard that story. We've all heard it at different times. And the way it's always been presented to me was it was always about the fact that Jesus forgave this woman who had committed adultery. But looking through different eyes now, it's so much more. It's the fact that Jesus saw a woman in need. He saw a woman who was repentance in her spirit.
Yes.
He saw a woman who was standing there and had a difference in her heart.
Yes.
You know, and it doesn't. The Bible doesn't tell us what he wrote in the sand, so we don't know if he wrote down, different sins that maybe these men standing around had, that he knew of that they didn't think he knew of, with those sort of things. But it just reminded me that how they're standing there with sin in their life, but they're so quick to kill somebody else. How often do we do that? How often do we call out somebody else's sin? We're quick to recognize somebody else's sin, but we don't recognize our own sin. Like for instance, you get on to your daughter about maybe talking about one of her friends, or let's say you get on to your daughter for an outfit that she has on. You don't like it. You tell her, no, you're not wearing that to the mall. It's too risque. No, you're not going to do it. And then you go in there and you get on your computer and you start looking at porn.
Yeah.
How many moms and dads have done that? Or have gotten on to their child about something they wanted to do to their hair or something, and then they go in and smoke marijuana.
Yeah.
Or go in and cuss out their neighbor.
Or they do the same thing that they were getting on their child for.
Yeah, well, that's the point. Is it doesn't even have to be the same. It's just sin.
Different sin.
And so I'm not saying that we don't need to call our daughter's dress into account
We need
and
to
stuff
live by
like that,
example.
but we need to live by example. You're absolutely right, TJ. We need to give as much in our appearance as what we're expecting our kids to give.
Yes.
If we're wearing low-cut blouses, we can't expect our child to wear a shirt up to here and not question the differences,
Right.
And like I said, sometimes we don't know the reasons why that clothing is there. So we, as Christians, don't need to be so quick to judge, because these were Christians. These men that were standing around, they were Christians. But they still had sin in their life, and they're still passing judgment on her instead of loving her, instead of trying to lead her to Christ. What do? They're just ready to stone her. They just want to condemn her, kill her, get it over with. Wipe my hands clean. So that was one thing that I really learned differently in this these set of verses that I had not really thought about before. Was Jesus looked into the soul.
Yes.
He didn't just see the woman standing there. I'm sure she probably was not dressed appropriately. She probably wasn't dressed like a Christian woman. I'm sure that if she had just been caught in adultery, she was probably very scantily covered, But God saw past all that, and He saw down into her heart and saw the soul, saw the real person that was there, and He saw the fact that she did want to change. He saw that in her and was able to pull that to the forefront and just overrun everything that his physical eyes were seeing. Because he was a man. His physical eyes weren't blind. He saw physically too. So, it was just amazing that I think God is just really saying, look with the eyes of God. Don't use human eyes when you look at somebody. But ask God to show you through His eyes what He sees in a person. And find the worth in that person, because everybody has a worth. Find that worth in that person. All right, Miss Melanie, will you read Ephesians 2, 8 and 9?
2, 8, 9. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast.
A lot of times when I've read that before, I thought, okay, well, that's just warning us against our works, that our works will not get us into heaven. And it is warning us against that. But it's also warning us against something different, too, that, it's good to work for God. It's good to do things for God. But God's going to see your heart when you're doing it. He knows exactly the reasons behind why you're doing it.
He knows it
He
better
knows.
than we do.
He knows the feelings that if you're being resentful against it when you're doing it. So even though you say outwardly with your mouth, well, I know my works is not going to get me into heaven. Does your heart believe that? Is your mouth speaking one thing and your heart thinking something else? Because God knows the difference. He knows if you're really doing it because you want to further the kingdom, or if you're doing it to be seen.
Right.
He knows that. He knows the heart. He knows what's inside, because there again, He's looking beyond the eyes. He's looking down into the soul. That's what we need to do when we look at people. When we see people who are out here working and giving, for Christ, look beyond the works.
Right.
Look. Don't just look at the job they're doing, but look at the attitude they have when they're doing it, and see if you can see a difference. Because I grant you, there are going to be times we all do things because we feel like we need to do them, and if we don't do them, nobody else is going to. We've all been there. We've all done it. We can't say, I mean, it happens all the time.
Yes.
But even when we do that, God knows our true heart. He knows we're tired. He knows that we're thinking, okay, well, this has just got to be done, so I'm just going to have to do it. And he sees beyond that, and he sees that we really love our church, or we love, the people, and we're trying to make sure that we get the job done, or he knows our true meanings behind our heart and really reaches down deep into that and pulls that part out of there. All right, TJ, Mark 2:15 and 17 through 15 through 17.
Later, Levi invited Jesus and his disciples to his home as dinner guests, along with the tax collectors and other disreputable sinners. There were many people of this kind among Jesus' followers. But when the teachers of religious law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with tax collectors and other sinners, they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with such scum?" When Jesus heard this, he told them, "Healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners."
Was it me and you that were talking about this yesterday?
Yes.
And, when I was reading this last night, and I was just thinking, okay, this is just yesterday that God, and me and you were talking about this, that God had put that in your spirit, and we were talking about the way that relationships work. And then last night when me and Jackie were talking, she was talking about something similar to that, how that, we do have to, especially addicts, we have to change our playgrounds. We have to change our areas. If we're trying to stop alcohol, we don't go into a bar to meet with our friends.
No.
But we also don't pass judgment on them. We try to show them that we've changed in different atmospheres. We just don't go to the club with them anymore and participate in the drinking. But, here Jesus goes in and he sits at the table with the Pharisees. Now, I'm here to tell you that if I'm out somewhere and I see some people who are struggling with addiction, and they're high as a kite, and I go over and sit with them, and certain Christians were to come in and see me sitting there, they're going to automatically make an assumption that I've fallen back. But here Jesus goes right there and sits with them, because he wants people to see that these people know they're sinners. They know that they're living wrong. They know that they have sin in their life. And he's trying to bring healing to them. Well, you can't bring healing to them if you're not ever around them, if you don't ever associate with them. Exactly. We're not supposed to turn our mind and our back on people who are in sin. As Christians, a lot of time, we kind of get that a little sideways, because yes, we have to change our playgrounds. Yes, we have to watch how we associate. We don't want to be seen coming out of, the liquor store or whatever with or the dope man's house. But there are safe environments in which we can meet with these people and talk with these people and witness with these people. Because what if no Christian had ever witnessed to us when we were in our deepest parts? How would we have ever? Not everybody's going to have an opportunity to come into a church. Not everybody's going to get invited to come into a church.
And you may be the only church that they ever see.
That's right, Stacy, absolutely. You may be the only church. You may be the only light that ever walks into their life, because we don't know what's going to happen to them in the next few minutes. We may be their last hope. We may be their last opportunity to see something different.
There's a reason
in Christianity than what they've ever been seen before. We were talking about some people that earlier, and how their life has been. We may have one opportunity to show them something different, one opportunity to love on them and show them Christ, truly show them Christ. But if we don't look into their soul, if we don't look into those eyes, if we just go up, "Oh, we're so glad you came today," what does that say? You know, how many times have we hugged blindly? Have you thought about that? You know, especially when Pastor Tim says, okay, everybody get up and go around and greet. You're trying to get to as many people and you're just, oh, hey, you know, hey. But how many times do we look in the eyes? Do we notice that the person we just hugged is having a bad day, that they're hurting that day? Did we even feel that the weight that they might be carrying for that day?
And you can
or
tell,
did we just hug them?
And you can tell, well, I can, people by their hugs.
Mhm.
Like if it's genuine or not. Just by the way they, like, hug you.
Absolutely you can. And especially lost people can tell it. They can feel. Because I can remember when I was running from God, and I had a true Christian, Miss Jean Williams. Y'all know her, love her. Ain't no doubt in my mind that woman is a woman of God. Yeah. And when I came to Celebrate Recovery, the moment she hugged me, it was a different kind of embrace than anything I had ever felt in my life before. It was honest and it was pure and there was no judgment. She looked into my eyes. She saw my heart. She felt my spirit. She knew I was broken. She didn't know what I was broken from. She didn't know what all I had been through, but she knew I was broken. And she just embraced me with such love and grace and mercy that I will never, ever, ever forget that hug. Yeah. You know, it stuck with me from that moment on. Yeah. And we as Christians, especially Christian women, have to be very, very careful that we do that same thing to every person that we love on. We've got to show them that there's a difference. You know, so many people there's Christianity in the world and there's Christianity through Christ.
Yeah.
And it's two totally different things.
Yes.
You know, Christianity in Christ is pure, it's honest, it's forgiving, it's kind, it's gentle. Christianity on the worldly side is judgmental.
Yeah.
You know, they look at your dress. Before they hug you, they look you up and down to decide if you're worthy of their hug. You know, or they give you that little hug. Have you ever had that little hug? Tammy Moon used to give those little hugs. Now Tammy Moon gives good hugs. But for a long time, it was really hard for her to hug, and it was that little, you know. We as Christian women who are trying to live a godly life have got to start looking into the souls of the people we come in contact with. And I mean really experiencing, asking God to let you feel the weight that they feel, let you feel the hurt that they are having, let you feel the anger they might have, whatever it is that they're going through. Before you even embrace that person in your mind, just ask God, Lord, let me feel what they're feeling. Let me see what they're seeing. Let me know what I need to say. Let them feel my hug as your hug. You know, let them see you in me. Let them feel you in me. We need to come with those kinds of praises and prayers on our hearts all the time. Whether we're at the grocery store or whether we're at church, it shouldn't matter. We should still have that same love. If somebody meets us out in town or comes in here and sees us at the church, the love they feel from us should be exactly the same. It should never deviate. Because that's how they tell if you're real or not. Yeah. And that's how God knows if you're real or not. You know, He knows the truth. He knows your true heart. And you can put on, for a certain period of time, anybody can fool everybody for a period of time. But at some point in time, the blinders will come off. Your true self will be revealed. You'll be put into a situation where your true self will come out. You know, and I want my true self to be Jesus. I want my true self to be one who is loving and kind and giving all the time. And that's hard sometimes when you're having a bad day. It's hard when you're sick. It's hard when you feel bad to sometimes let that come out. But that's where it's so important that we keep that relationship with Christ, so that line of connection is there and it's not broken because of our health, because of how we're feeling. All right, I'm going to read Matthew 7, 1 through 5. It says, "Do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log that's in your own eye? You hypocrite. First, get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. You know, I've read that many, many times, but I never really had the words resonate in my heart the way they did. And that goes back to the fact that we all have sin in our life, every one of us. And when we start pointing out somebody else's sin, what's coming back at us? You know, if, whether we use one finger or do like the gun, whatever, you know, we've got those fingers coming back to us. And, you know, so often we're so, I don't know how to say this nicely, we're so hung up in ourselves. We're so hung up in our pride. We're so hung up in, well, I'm doing the things for God. I'm coming to church. I'm wearing the right clothes. I'm doing the right speeches. I'm giving the right hugs. We get so caught up in that we don't see that our heart's not doing it. Our body may be doing it. Our mind may be doing it, but our heart's not. And that's what I really got out of this, is we got to do it with the heart. You know, if we will take that log out of our eye, then our heart's clean. And we can then lovingly go to our brother or our sister when they're dealing with sin, or when they have something in their life that we've noticed, you know, that is not godly. But we can't do that if our heart's not right. And that's where so often we get in trouble. People feel the difference in our heart. And they, you know, if they see us coming to them, let's say I hear Pinky say a bad word. And, you know, I go to Pinky and I'm like, well, you know, brother, you know, you're hooping and hollering in church, and then here you are, you know, cursing, you know. And then I go out here and me and my husband get in a fight and I curse my husband out. You know? What have I done? I've just
did what you
killed everything
Yeah.
that I tried to restore in my brother or my sister, because I lost control of myself, because my heart wasn't right. Because I was going to them with the wrong kind of a heart. And so, you know, when I think about the speck in the eye, I really think about the heart.
Yeah.
If your heart's right, then you can lovingly help somebody else change their heart. But if your heart's not right, if your heart's not clean, if your heart's not in the right place, then you certainly can't help somebody else's heart to heal. It's impossible to do that, because you're going to stumble. You're gonna throw them back down in a nasty path, because they're going to say, well, here you are telling me how I need to live, and then you're out here doing this or that and da da da.
And they may be a new Christian,
Yeah.
and before they became Christians, they were questioning what a true Christian is like, and then they become Christians, and then they see you doing what they used to do, and then they're like, well, what's the point of...
I had a guy who I think a lot of, when I first started coming to Mount Creek. He once told me, he's not here anymore, but he once told me, he said, when I first started to Mount Creek, I was still smoking marijuana. And he said, I had no intentions of giving it up. I didn't want to give it up. You know, I was coming to church, I was praying, but I had no intentions of giving it up. And it wasn't until he realized that him smoking that marijuana was a stumbling block to those around him, to the people he was witnessing to outside of
That
here.
he was calling himself a Christian. And
Yeah, that he was, you know, he was saying, you know, I've changed, I'm different. We got no tissue. I'm a different person, and he, you know, was out here inside. Of course, he wasn't bringing his marijuana to church and smoking it or whatever, but he would leave here and go smoke it.
Yeah.
So all of his testimony that he would have from his praying and prayers in the church was wiped out the minute he picked that joint up in front of somebody he had been witnessing to. Because they then saw, well, he's really not different. He's no different than I am. He just goes to church.
Right.
So that's what we have to be so careful about is, you know, we say don't judge a book by its cover. But then we are also being judged.
It's hard.
And we are being judged by our cover.
Yes.
Because if we say we're covered by the blood, then people are going to judge us as to whether or not they believe we're covered by the blood.
Right.
So I say that to have you look at this two ways. Be cautious of how you see somebody, really see their soul. But at the same time, know that you're being watched. Know that you're being judged. Know that people, non-Christians, are watching your every move. They're checking to see if you're really different. They're checking to see if you've been covered by the blood. They're checking to see if your book cover is different. You know, and I want you to ask yourself, is my book cover different? You know, every one of us has a different Bible. It has a different kind of facing on it. You know, some may be leather. Some may have a pretty picture on it. Some may be plain, just black or gray. But what's inside is all the same.
That's right.
What's in the words inside don't change.
That's right.
Well, we're the same. Our physical body is the same. It's what's inside that's changed. And that's what we need people to see. But we can't let them see that if we don't look into their eyes. If we don't make that connection with them and look beyond their outside appearances and see what God sees. And so, but I told you that, you know, judging others cheapens the price that Jesus paid for us, because we all have value in God's eyes. I want us to really start thinking about the value that people have in God's eyes. Does He value a child more than He values an adult?
No. He
No.
loves us all the
He
same.
loves us all the same. It's an equal playing field. The Bible tells us that throughout the words, that it's an equal playing field. He doesn't place value on you based on the amount of money you have, based on the car you drive, the job you have, whatever. He values Pastor Tim and me equally the same. And I am in no way comparing myself to Pastor Tim. Y'all understand that? But what I'm saying is, God doesn't compare me to Pastor Tim either. He loves me exactly the same as He loves Pastor Tim, regardless of what's in my life. That value never changes.
John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world," not
Certain ones in the world.
That's
certain rich people.
Mm-hmm. Will you look at 1 John 4:9, and which one of y'all wants 1 Samuel?
Who cares?
Melanie, you want to take it?
Yeah,
1
I'll
Samuel
take
16:7. And Stacy's going to look at 1 John 4:9. And I put on here, we shouldn't prejudge the worth or value of something by its outward appearance alone. Just like with the coin, you know, that we had out a while ago. You can look at its outward appearance, and it outwardly appears that it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But inwardly, it's not.
By the color and the
Yeah.
amount on it.
Yeah.
You think, man, I
mean,
go.
I'm serious. Let me show you. I've got a couple of other ones here. I want to just show you. I want to show you the difference in this. Okay, so this one is 5. Okay, so I thought, okay, well that's a nickel. Mm-mm. Far from a nickel. Far, far from a nickel.
Is that $5?
Mm-mm. No, all these are changed. This is like
Okay.
less than pennies. It's crazy. I wish I had the chart.
So that's less than a nickel.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes, less than a nickel. This 10 cents. You automatically look at it.
Dime.
U.S. You think it's a dime, but it's not. And feel how light. I mean, it's like play money. It's like something you would get out of a Monopoly
Yeah.
game or something.
Yeah.
Here's the 25 and the 50,
Whoa.
and then here's another one of those.
Gosh.
Jeez.
I mean,
Heavy.
but when you look at them, you feel the weight of them.
Yeah.
You feel how heheavy they are, and you're
That's
thinking,
Like plastic.
yeah, feels like nothing, doesn't
But
it?
feel those that she's got.
Isn't that crazy? How just outwardly
Yeah.
they look like they're worth a certain amount, but then inwardly they're worth nothing, like what they appear.
Yeah.
But that's right the opposite with God. Outwardly, we look like we're worth nothing.
Yeah.
But inwardly, when He looks at us, we're worth all the gold in the world.
Yeah.
He loves us more than every creature He created.
Yeah.
You know, so when we look at somebody, we don't need to look at the outside. We need to look at the inside, because that's the worth.
Through God's
That's
eyes.
where God sees the worth at, is on the inside. And if we can ever start to look with God's eyes and
Yes.
look at the inside
Yes.
and know that those people are worth it,
Yes.
that He died on the cross for them just like He did for me and you, and to stop these prejudgments, you know, that we make on people. Matthew Henry is a guy that I was reading some quotes and stuff, and he stated, men judge by the sight of the eyes, but God does not. You know, God truly looks in at the heart and really sees, He really sees the soul and the spirit. All right, Stacy, read 1 John 4:9, please, ma'am.
In this, the love of God was manifested toward us, that God has sent His only begotten Son into the world that we might live through Him.
So there again, it's just showing the importance of how much God loved us, even in the beginning, when we were sinners.
Yeah.
His love for us didn't start once we got saved.
No.
His love for us started when we were conceived, even before we were conceived.
Yeah.
His love for us was there. He knew we were going to be conceived. He knew when we were going to be born, and He knew that we were going to be born into a life of sin. And He knew that some of us were going to choose the wrong path.
Yeah.
But His love for that person was no different from the person who was going to grow up to be a Christian from age 5.
See,
That's
I
right.
thought I'd never be good enough to go to heaven, so I didn't try.
Right, right.
I just-
Because the preconceptions that you were given during your childhood, that you could never do enough, be good enough to be able to get into heaven. And now, though, you know that there is one way, and that is through Jesus Christ. You have to repent and accept Christ as your Lord and Savior and have that relationship with Him. I mean, that's the only way, is through Jesus. There is no other. All right, Miss Melanie, 1 Samuel 16:7.
But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for a man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart.
So we believe that this is our guidebook, right? We believe this is how we're supposed to live our life. So you think God put those words in there just for nothing?
Nope.
No. He put them in there to show us that the outward is just that. It's flesh and bone. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just flesh and bone. It's the inside soul that matters. And everybody has a soul. Sometimes those souls get pushed down to the bottom. Sometimes they get so squashed and so hurt and so broken that you think there can never be light enough to reach down into that soul and touch them. And I'm telling you, we met a kid that was once a hired hand to kill. That's what his job was as a kid. Now
As a
we're not
kid?
talking about as a man. No, he was a child, a kid, teenager. That's what he did. He was hired to go out and murder people. Now you think that there is no hope for that kid, but let me tell you, about 4 or 5 months ago, Koto and them led him to Christ.
Amen.
And now he is a discipleship in these walls to these other kids. He changed his name. He wants to be called by a different name. And I'm not saying the names because I don't know. I haven't talked to Danielle. I'm not sure how much we can say, but he wants to be known by something different. Just like Paul went to, from Saul to Paul. He changed. He became this young man is transformed. He's a different person. He's not the same person he once was. He's not this cold-hearted killer who's out making money. He is out here witnessing to these other kids for Christ, and he is so hungry. And Daniela and Pablo and them are just pouring into his soul, and he's asking questions and, and just craving information. And it is just such a blessing to think that all of their hard work that they've been praying for years and years and years to be able to do this is now coming to manifest. It's not like they just woke up one morning and said, okay, we want to have a prison ministry. Okay, God, we're ready now. Throw it on us. No, they've prayed about it, and they've pushed and pulled and pushed and pulled, and you know, they've prayed and they've been patient and they've waited on God, and now for this season, maybe for this reason, for this one kid, you know, they've made the difference. So how many more kids is in there? You know, how many more kids will they be able to reach? Will they be able to pull out? There's one young lady that Daniela works with when she goes in, and she's kind of cold and pulled back, and Daniela just pulls and pulls and pulls and gets close to her, and the girl opens up, and then something happens, she pulls back, and then Daniela pulls forward again, and it's just like this struggle between good and evil in her life.
Yeah.
And I just believe with all my heart that Daniela is going to be able to break that bond. She's going to be able to break through that wall that Satan has put up, and hopefully, you know, if nothing else, she's planting seeds in this young lady's life, in several of these young ladies' lives actually. But this one particular one just kind of hit me. But you know, I just can't get the statement that men judge by the sight of the eyes, but God does not. You know, I want to be this person that's so godlike that I truly look beyond the outward appearance, and that I see through the eyes, and that I can see the spirit, that I can see the heart, that I can feel. I want God to give me that breath of fresh air. You know, that when I breathe that freshness in, that it's Him I'm breathing in, so that when I do come across these people, that I can look at them and say to them, I love you. God loves you. And that they know it's not just words I'm speaking, that when I hug them, they feel the love, they feel the warmth, they feel something different in my hug that they've never felt before. You know, I really want that to be, I don't want to be that person that judges a book by its cover. Because if you judge this book by its cover, you say, oh wow, it's beautiful, it's silver, you know, it's expensive, it's leather, and then, TJ, is this one yours? Yours is not very thick, is it? And then, you know, I look at TJ's and, oh, wow, those pages are kind of plain. No, it's got a nice, pretty green bright. But you know what? They're identical.
Yeah.
The words may be a little different because of the different translations. But they're the same
all the
thing.
same.
It doesn't matter how big or how
It's
small.
all the same.
It doesn't matter how light or how bright. It's what's in the pages that matters. That's what should matter in our lives. You know, it doesn't matter what this looks like, but it's what's between these. It's what's between the chest and the back that matters. That's what's going to change lives and touch souls. That's what's going to turn this world on its ear and help them to see that God is God, and He is God alone. There is no other. And I hope that, I know this has been kind of quick and brief and kind of scattered, but I hope that you, next time you pick up a coin or you pick up anything, or the next time you come across somebody, I hope that you'll remember to not judge it by its shape or its weight or its color, you know, or even its actions, but to judge it by its heart, and to really see that person's heart, really see what's inside them, and feel that loneliness, if that's what's there. Feel that hurt, so that when you get on your knees that night, you can ask God, God, take away that pain, take away that hurt, take away that loneliness. Feel that empty spot they have. If you don't feel it, you can't pray for it. You know what I'm saying? If you don't, I mean, I can pray for TJ, and God's going to hear me. But if I can say, God, I see the hurt in her eyes. You know, I feel the heaviness. If I can help her carry that load, if I can share that load with her, if I can say, God, help me to help TJ carry the load. Wouldn't that be worth it? If we could do it to Christians and to non-Christians, to be able to help our brothers and sisters carry the heavy loads that they're carrying, or to meet a stranger or somebody who's struggling and be able to help carry their load would just be awesome, I think. But we can't do that if we don't look through the eyes and see the soul. So that's what I want us to take out of that today. But Thank y'all for thank y'all for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Peace.